For centuries, humanity believed they stood alone in the vast darkness of space. Earth had just begun to reach beyond its atmosphere, with small colonies on Mars and Europa. The people of Earth felt proud of their achievements, unaware that other eyes watched them from distant stars. On a warm summer day, strange lights appeared in the skies over major cities. These weren't meteors or satellites, they moved with purpose. The Galactic Confederation had arrived. Made up of 17 alien species, they came in ships that made human vessels look like toys. Admiral Taewon stood tall on the deck of Earth's largest space station as the alien representatives stepped through the airlock. They wore suits that shimmered with colors humans had no names for. Their leader, an 8-foot-tall being called Moro, extended 3 of his 5 arms in what humans would later learn was a gesture of minimal respect. "Your species has achieved much in a short time," Moro said through a translation device. His real voice sounded like wind chimes and thunder. The Confederation wishes to establish diplomatic relations. Over the next week, Earth's leaders met with the aliens. Television screens worldwide showed images of the visitors and their amazing technology. People celebrated in the streets, believing this was the dawn of a new age. Few noticed how the aliens looked at human technology with what seemed like amusement. During a tour of Earth's orbital defense platform, Moro ran a scanner over the human weapons systems. "Interesting approach," he said to Taewon. "Though rather basic. Your defenses would last perhaps 3 days against even a small attack from the outer systems." Taewon simply nodded. "We do what we can with what we have." That night, as the alien delegation prepared to return to their mothership, President Hannah called an emergency meeting. In a secure room deep beneath Seoul, she gathered with just 5 others, the Keepers, they called themselves. For thousands of years, their families had protected Earth's greatest secret. "They're exactly as our ancestors described," Hannah said, looking at ancient scrolls spread across the table. "The time has come." Taewon nodded. "I've analyzed their technology. It matches the predictions. They're advanced, but not as advanced as what waits below." An old man named Du Hyun, keeper of the ancient codes, opened a box made of a metal not found on Earth's periodic table. Inside lay a crystal key, pulsing with inner light. "Our ancestors fled here when the Great War destroyed their worlds," he said. "They hid their most powerful weapons where no one would think to look, beneath the waters of a seemingly primitive planet." Far below the meeting room, in secure facilities around the world, technicians who had trained their whole lives for this moment began the awakening sequence. Deep beneath the oceans, in trenches no regular human vessels could reach, something stirred. At precisely midnight, seismic monitors worldwide registered movement. Scientists not in the know scrambled to understand what was happening. Tsunami warnings blared across coastal cities, but the expected waves never came. Instead, the ocean began to glow. First in the Pacific, then the Atlantic, then seas worldwide. Satellite images showed massive shapes moving beneath the surface, perfect geometric forms where no structures should exist. The alien delegation, about to depart Earth orbit, suddenly stopped. Their sensors detected enormous energy readings from the planet below. Moro demanded an explanation from his science officer. "Unknown technology activating on the planet's surface," the officer replied, mandibles clicking in distress. "Energy signatures exceed our ship's combined output by a factor of 1,000. In the waters off Japan, the first ship surfaced. Black as night, smooth as glass, and 5 kilometers long. No visible engines, no visible weapons, yet every alien sensor screamed danger. Then another rose near Hawaii. Then dozens more in the Atlantic. Within an hour, over 10,000 massive vessels floated on Earth's oceans, with energy readings suggesting many more still hidden below." Taewon received the confirmation signal on his secure communicator. He straightened his uniform and headed to meet the alien delegation one more time before they departed. "Admiral," Moro said when Taewon entered the room. The alien's skin had paled to a sickly hue. "What is happening on your planet?" Taewon allowed himself a small smile. "Just some old friends waking up. They've been sleeping for a very long time. Those vessels, they can't be yours. Your species was throwing spears just a few thousand years ago. That's what we wanted everyone to think," Tae-won replied. Now, before you leave, I believe we should talk again about Earth's position in your confederation. As equals this time. Above them, the first of the ancient ships rose from the ocean into the sky, water cascading from its enormous hull as it took its place among the stars for the first time in 10,000 years. The ocean boiled as more ships rose from the depths. Not hundreds but thousands broke the surface worldwide. Each vessel was enormous, sleek, and black as the deepest space. They made no sound as they lifted into the air, defying gravity with technology long forgotten by most of humanity. President Hanna stood on the balcony of the United Nations building in New York, watching as three of the massive ships hovered over the city. People in the streets below pointed and took pictures. Some ran in fear, but most stood in awe, their faces bathed in the soft blue glow cast by the ancient vessels. "Madam President," said her aide, Junho, rushing to her side. "We have reports coming in from all corners of the earth. The fleet is fully awakening." Hanna nodded calmly. "How many so far?" "Over 50,000 ships have surfaced, with sensors showing many more still rising. The total appears to match the old records, 1 million vessels, just as our ancestors promised." On screens across the globe, news channels struggled to make sense of what was happening. Experts offered wild theories about alien invasions or secret government projects. None came close to the truth. In orbit, the Confederation delegation had postponed their departure. Their flagship, once impressive at 2 kilometers long, now seemed tiny compared to the Earth vessels rising to meet them. Morrow paced the command deck, all 5 of his arms twitching nervously. "How did we miss this?" he demanded of his intelligence officer. "A pre-FTL civilization doesn't build a fleet that outclasses the entire Confederation Navy." "The ships are ancient," the officer replied, studying sensor readings. "Carbon dating suggests they've been here for at least 10,000 years. That predates even the formation of the Confederation." Below, in a secure bunker beneath Mount Pictou, the keepers gathered around a control interface that hadn't been used in millennia. Do-hyun placed his palm on the scanner, and ancient symbols lit up in response. The language wasn't Korean or any other Earth tongue, it was the language of the stars, brought to Earth by humans fleeing a war that had nearly wiped them out. "The awakening is complete," said Yeonmi, the youngest of the keepers. "The fleet awaits your command." Do-hyun's eyes glistened with tears. "For 20 generations, my family has waited for this day. We kept the truth alive when others forgot. Now our ancestors' legacy returns." In cities worldwide, massive holographic displays appeared in the skies. They showed images of a history unknown to most humans, vast cities among the stars, great fleets traveling between galaxies, and then terrible war. The images showed Earth not as humanity's birthplace but as its fortress of last resort. The Confederation representatives watched these same images from their ships. Morrow's translator struggled with the ancient language, but the message was clear enough. Humans weren't newcomers to the galactic stage, they were returning veterans. Admiral Tae-won stood on the bridge of the flagship, now designated Remembrance. The ship's systems responded to his touch as if they had been designed for his hands alone. In a way, they had been. His DNA carried the access codes, passed down through careful breeding over 10,000 years. "Fleet status?" he asked the ship's AI. "All vessels operational at 94% capacity," came the reply in a voice like flowing water. "Power cores are stable. Weapons systems online but dormant as per First Awakening protocols." On the main view screen, Tae-won could see the Confederation ships hovering uncertainly in orbit. He opened a channel to their flagship. "This is Admiral Tae-won of Earth," he said simply. "I believe it's time we continued our earlier discussion about diplomatic relations." The response came quickly. "Admiral," Morrow's voice had lost its earlier condescension. "We seem to have misjudged your species. The Confederation would be pleased to reopen negotiations." "Excellent," Tae-won replied. "Please inform your leadership that Earth will be sending representatives to the Confederation capital. Not as petitioners, but as equals." As the sun set across Earth, people gathered to watch the ancient ships hovering in the skies. Teachers who knew only partial truths told children stories about humanity's forgotten history among the stars. In museums, artifacts long thought to be merely ceremonial began to glow in response to the awakened fleet. President Hanna addressed the world from the United Nations. "Today, we remember who we truly are," she said, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "For thousands of years, we have hidden our strength, rebuilding in secret while appearing harmless. The fleet our ancestors hid beneath our oceans was not just for protection, it was a promise that one day humanity would return to the stars not as conquerors, but as guardians of peace." Above her, the great ships formed patterns in the sky, their hulls reflecting the light of the setting sun. The sleeping giants had awakened, and the galaxy would never be the same. Morrow and his fellow Confederation representatives stood frozen as they watched Earth's massive fleet spread through the solar system. What had seemed like a simple diplomatic mission to a young species had turned into the greatest shock in Confederation history. Admiral Taiwan walked calmly toward the aliens, carrying a small silver tablet. His uniform was different now, no longer Earth's Space Command colors but something older, with symbols that matched those on the ancient ships. "Before you return to your capital," Taiwan said, "we should discuss new terms for Earth's relationship with the Confederation." Morrow's skin had turned a pale blue, a sign of stress in his species. "How is this possible? Just yesterday, we considered your world barely space-capable." Taiwan smiled. "That was by design. Please, let's sit and talk as equals now." In orbit around Earth, the black ships moved with perfect precision. They formed a sphere around the planet, with larger vessels taking positions near Mars and Jupiter. The smallest of these ships was twice the size of the largest Confederation vessel. News of Earth's fleet spread across space faster than light. The Vraxian Empire, which had been planning to attack several outer Confederation worlds, suddenly pulled its forces back. Other powers sent urgent messages to their representatives, demanding information about this mysterious human fleet. On Earth, President Hanna opened sealed vaults that had remained hidden for thousands of years. From these came the true history of humanity. Not as creatures who evolved on Earth, but as refugees who had chosen it as their hiding place. 10,000 years ago, Hanna explained in a worldwide broadcast, humans controlled an empire spanning 3 galaxies. "We were peaceful explorers until the Darkness War began." Images filled screens worldwide, showing great battles among the stars. Ships similar to those now orbiting Earth fought against shadowy vessels of bizarre design. "Our ancestors fought bravely, but the enemy was relentless. When defeat seemed certain, our leaders made a desperate choice. They selected Earth, a beautiful but primitive world far from the fighting, as the place where humanity would hide and rebuild." In the Keeper's chamber beneath Mount Pictou, Young Mi activated more of the ancient systems. Holographic maps appeared, showing the full extent of old human space territories that now belonged to dozens of different species, including many in the Confederation. "Our ancestors didn't just bring ships," she explained to the gathered world leaders. "They brought our complete technological knowledge, our history, and our culture. But they knew that using advanced technology would draw attention. So they chose to live simply, to forget their past, and to grow again slowly. Only a few families, the Keepers, maintained the knowledge of humanity's true origins. They protected the sleeping fleet and kept the access codes safe through careful bloodlines. Generation after generation, they waited for the right moment to awaken the ships." In orbit, Taiwan gave Morrow and his delegation a tour of the flagship Remembrance. The aliens stared in wonder at technology they couldn't understand. Systems that seemed to respond to thought alone. Materials that changed properties when touched. Weapons that could target objects across vast distances with perfect accuracy. "This ship is over 15,000 years old," Taiwan explained. "Even before the hiding, it was considered vintage. Our newest vessels were far more advanced, but none survived the war." Morrow ran a scanner over a section of the wall. "This material, our science says it cannot exist. It seems to bend fundamental forces." "Yes," Taiwan nodded. "We called it star metal. The knowledge to create it was lost even before we came to Earth. As days passed, more of humanity's secret history came to light. Ancient structures around the world, pyramids, stone circles, buried cities, revealed themselves as monitoring stations for the hidden fleet. Myths and legends about gods from the sky were shown to be distant memories of humanity's true past. The revelation changed Earth overnight. People who had thought of themselves as separate nations suddenly realized they shared a common heritage far older than their countries. Languages that scholars had struggled to connect showed clear patterns when viewed through the lens of the original human tongue. In a private meeting room on the Remembrance, Taewon sat across from Moro. Between them floated a holographic display of the galaxy. "We don't want war," Taewon said. "We've seen enough destruction to last many lifetimes. But we will no longer hide what we are." Moro's translator worked hard to find the right words. "What exactly does humanity want from the Confederation?" Taewon's eyes reflected the starlight. "Recognition. Respect. And a seat at the council table, not as newcomers, but as returning founders." Across Earth, people looked to the sky with new eyes. The stars were no longer distant and unreachable. They were old homes, waiting to be revisited. As night fell in each time zone, millions stepped outside to gaze upward, seeing not just pinpoints of light, but their heritage. The news of Earth's hidden fleet traveled across the galaxy at lightning speed. On the Confederation capital world of Luminara, the High Council gathered for an emergency meeting. The Grand Hall, designed to show the power of the 17 founding species, suddenly seemed less impressive. "How did we miss this?" asked Councillor Reth, their crystalline body reflecting the chamber's lights. "A million warships hidden on a single planet. They were dormant." "Powered down," replied the science minister. "And the humans deliberately appeared primitive. They let their true knowledge fade from most of their population." 6 days after the fleet's emergence, a single Earthship arrived at Luminara. Though smaller than many in the fleet, it still dwarfed the orbital stations. Admiral Taewon stepped onto Confederation soil as Earth's first official representative. The High Council had planned a modest welcome ceremony befitting a new minor species. Instead, they hastily arranged an honor traditionally reserved for founding members. Taewon noticed the change but said nothing as he was escorted to the council chamber. "The people of Earth thank you for this welcome," Taewon began, speaking without translation devices. The council members exchanged surprised glances. He was speaking perfect High Galactic, a language Earth shouldn't know. "For too long, we have lived in the shadows of our own history. Now we return to the stars, not seeking revenge or territory, but cooperation." Across the galaxy, military commanders studied the little information available about Earth's fleet. The ships used no known power source. Their hulls were made of materials that absorbed scans rather than reflecting them. Most concerning of all, the ships showed weapons systems that could theoretically destroy planets. On a frontier world called New Haven, local settlers watched as 3 massive Earth vessels took position around their planet. For years, they had suffered raids from the aggressive Vraxian Empire. No one had answered their calls for help until now. "We're not here to occupy your world," said Captain Misun, speaking to New Haven's leaders. "We're here to ensure your people can live in peace." 2 days later, a Vraxian raiding fleet arrived as usual. They found not helpless farmers but Earth warships waiting in silence. The raiders turned and fled without firing a shot. Similar scenes played out across a dozen worlds. Earthships appeared near vulnerable planets, forming protective barriers against those who would exploit them. They asked for nothing in return. Back on Earth, President Hannah opened more of the ancient archives to the public. Schools began teaching the true history of humanity's journey to Earth. Children learned that their ancestors had once built wonders across the stars and might do so again. "We hid not from fear," Hannah explained in her address to the United Nations, "but to survive. Our ancestors knew that if they revealed their technology too soon, the forces that destroyed their empire would find them again. So they waited, building their strength in secret until the time was right." In the Keeper's Chamber beneath Mount Pictou, Youngmi studied star charts showing the old borders of human space. Much of it now belonged to other species who had expanded into the vacuum left by humanity's disappearance. "Do we reclaim our old territories?" she asked Du Hyun. The old man shook his head. "That was never the plan. Our ancestors didn't hide the fleet so we could start another war. They hid it so we would have the strength to prevent one." On Luminara, the Confederation High Council voted to grant Earth immediate full membership, with a seat on the inner circle. Some members protested, saying Earth had forced their hand through military intimidation. "Let's be honest," replied Councillor Ref. "If they wanted to intimidate us, they could have simply destroyed our fleets. Instead, they've only protected the vulnerable. Perhaps we should learn from them." In the Vraxian Empire, war ministers argued fiercely about how to respond to Earth's emergence. Their emperor, a six-limbed being named Draz, silenced them with a gesture. "I have studied Earth's history as they shared it," he said. "These humans faced extinction and chose hiding over vengeance. They built their strength not to conquer but to protect. We would be fools to test their resolve." 3 months after the fleet's awakening, delegates from 30 worlds requested permission to visit Earth. Not to assess a new player in galactic politics, but to learn from humanity's patient approach to recovery. Taewon, now officially Earth's ambassador to the Confederation, welcomed them at a ceremony in Seoul. "For 10,000 years, we appeared weak while growing strong," he told the gathered delegates. "Not because we feared others, but because we feared ourselves. Our ancestors knew the temptation of power, so they made sure we would learn wisdom before we reclaimed our strength." That night, as the alien visitors gazed up at Earth's moon, ships from the ancient fleet performed a dance in the sky. Their movements formed patterns of light against the darkness, not a show of force, but a celebration of peace preserved through patience and foresight. Throughout the galaxy, beings of all species watched recordings of this display. Many wondered what other secrets Earth might still be keeping. 1 Earth year had passed since the ancient fleet emerged from the oceans. The galaxy looked very different now. Ships that had slept for thousands of years beneath Earth's waters now guarded dozens of worlds once at the mercy of stronger powers. On the bridge of the Remembrance, Admiral Taewon looked out at the stars. His ship orbited a small planet called Terrace, home to a young species just beginning to explore their own solar system. 3 months ago, slave traders had targeted this world. They found Earth vessels waiting instead. "Admiral," said his second-in-command, Jinho. "The Confederation representatives have arrived for the treaty signing." Taewon nodded. "Tell them I'll be there shortly." The Terran Accords, as the treaty became known, would change how species across the galaxy related to each other. In the grand meeting hall built specially for this occasion, delegates from 32 worlds gathered. Some came from mighty empires. Others represented planets so small they had never before been invited to such talks. President Hannah, her hair now streaked with more gray than when the fleet first awoke, took her place at the center table. Beside her sat Morrow, who had become Earth's strongest supporter in the Confederation. 1 year ago, Hannah began, many of you feared what Earth's fleet might mean. You wondered if we would use our strength to take what we wanted. Today, we answer that question once and for all. She activated a holographic display showing the galaxy. Blue lights marked where Earth ships now stood guard over vulnerable worlds. The Terran Accords established these worlds as protected zones. No military action, no forced trade, no exploitation will be permitted in these regions. All species, no matter how small or new, have the right to develop without fear. Some delegates shifted uncomfortably. The Vraxian representative, a high general named Krost, raised his spiked hand. "And who gave Earth the right to decide these matters? You claim to protect peace, but you do so with the threat of your weapons." The room fell silent. Everyone knew the Vraxians had been the worst offenders before Earth's return, conquering weaker worlds and stripping their resources. Taewon stood. "We claim no special right except the ability and will to act. For too long, the strong have preyed on the weak while others looked away. Earth was once among the weak, long ago when our ancestors first fled here. We have not forgotten that feeling." After hours of debate, the treaty was signed. Most delegates pressed their names to it willingly. A few, like the Vraxians, did so with reluctance plain on their faces. But they signed all the same. No one wished to stand against Earth's fleet. That evening, as celebrations began, Youngmi walked through gardens specially planted to showcase flowers from all participating worlds. As the youngest of the keepers, she had seen her role change dramatically. No longer was she protecting ancient secrets. Now she taught the truth to children worldwide. She found Morrow sitting alone, watching 3 moons rise over the horizon. You seem troubled, counselor, she said, sitting beside him. Morrow's skin rippled with colors. I am thinking about history. Your fleet could have conquered half the galaxy by now. Many species would have done exactly that. I want to understand why you didn't. Young me smiled. The first thing we teach our children about the ancient war is that it began with good intentions. Our ancestors believed their power gave them the right to control others' destinies. That belief destroyed them. Across the galaxy, Earth vessels maintained their silent watch. They asked for nothing in return for their protection. They demanded no resources, no special trading rights. When questioned about this policy, Earth representatives gave the same answer: we protect because we can, not because we profit. On a distant world called Nevis, a small girl with blue skin looked up as an Earthship passed overhead. Her people had once lived in fear of raiders from nearby systems. Now they walked freely under open skies. Will I get to visit Earth someday? She asked her parent. Perhaps, they answered. The humans have opened their schools to young people from protected worlds. They say knowledge is the greatest defense against tyranny. As the first anniversary celebrations concluded, President Hannah and Admiral Taewon stood on a balcony overlooking the ocean where the fleet had hidden for so long. Ships still rose occasionally as more were needed for the growing protection network. Do you ever wonder if our ancestors would approve of what we've done? Taewon asked. Hannah watched as the sun set over the water. They hid these ships so humanity would survive. But I think they hoped for more than survival. They hoped we would learn from their mistakes. Below them, children played on beaches that had once concealed the greatest fleet in the galaxy. They grew up knowing not just Earth's history, but humanity's true legacy among the stars. They learned that their ancestors had fallen because they forgot a simple truth: true power isn't measured by what you can destroy, but by what you choose to protect. Across the endless stars, beings of all kinds looked toward Earth with new understanding. The small blue planet harbored not just another species, but guardians who had sacrificed their own advancement to preserve what mattered most.